Welcome to Books and Brews, Titletown's Patriots, an America 250 miniseries.
Oh, yeah.
This podcast is powered by NotebookLM. Today's weather forecast is powered by Fox Weather.
And looking up at this sky right now, Fox Weather absolutely nailed the forecast.
He really did. I mean, we are recording this outside Drecky-Yord Studios right here in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And it is Saturday, June 27, 2026. We've got like one of those crisp, clear Green Bay summer mornings where the air still carries just a tiny bit of a bite.
Right, before the July heat just fully takes over and bakes us out here.
Exactly. It's an ideal morning to sit outside, share some drinks, and really get into the research.
Oh, definitely.
But before we get into the sources we've pulled for you today, I want you to picture something entirely different from a sunny morning in Green Bay.
Okay.
So I want you listening to picture being an elite professional athlete. You are at the absolute peak of your physical prime. You are leading the league, you're making a huge name for yourself, but instead of walking into the front office to demand, a massive contract extension.
Like they do today.
Exactly. You walk into a military recruitment office to request a deployment to a war zone.
Wow.
And not just once, but twice.
It completely upends how we view the trajectory of a professional sports career today, doesn't it?
It really does. Because when you are watching a game today, you see a linear progression: high school, college, draft day, professional career, and then retirement.
Right, it's a straight line.
But when you step into the history we are analyzing in our sources today, which covers Packers veterans from the Korean War, the early Cold War, and the legendary Lombardi era, that timeline is just routinely shattered.
Well, yeah, and our sources reveal a really fascinating cultural baseline. I mean, even after the massive global mobilization of World War II ended, the expectation of duty didn't just vanish.
No, it didn't.
Military service remained a very common, very tangible part of life for many professional football players in the 1950s and 60s.
All right, so to you listening right now, pull up a chair to the table. This is the third deep dive in our mini-series leading up to our July 4, 2026 finale.
Yep.
We have crafted this specifically for you, combining patriotic history, deeply rooted Packers lore, and of course our curated Books and Brews menu.
So what's first?
Let's start with our first featured drink to ground us in the era. I am bringing out the Forgotten Front Fog.
Oh, wow. That smells incredibly complex. Is that Earl Grey?
Yes, it is a patriotic take on a classic London fog tea. So we've got a strong brewed Earl Grey, steamed whole milk, a pinch of sea salt, and instead of vanilla, we are using pure American maple syrup.
The contrast there is really what stands out to me.
Say so.
Well, you have that sharp bergamot bite from the tea and then that unexpected pinch of sea salt. It evokes this harshness which directly parallels the conditions these men faced in the Korean War, which is often called the Forgotten War, right?
Right, exactly.
They were dealing with the bitter, freezing realities of places like the Chosin Reservoir.
Oh, definitely. But then that harshness is immediately countered by the thick layer of milk foam and the maple syrup.
Right.
Which sort of brings you back to the comforts of the American home front. It's literally a fog bank in a mug, masking the dark tea underneath.
That's a great way to put it.
And it really sets the stage for a group of men who had to navigate both of those worlds simultaneously. I mean, we're talking about players from the sources like J.D. Kimmel, Bob Summerhays, Billy Howton, and Droll Tatik. And all of them served in the U.S. Army during this exact period.
Along with Howie Ferguson, right.
Yeah.
He served in the U.S. Navy. The sources really point out that these guys were just seamlessly transitioning between the gridiron and the military. It was a societal norm.
But let me pause you right there.
Okay.
Because while it might have been a societal norm back then, the mechanics of it are still mind-boggling when you look at individual careers.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I really want to highlight Bob Forte from the text. So he gets drafted by the Packers in 1943, but he doesn't play a single snap. He postpones his entire NFL debut to serve as a first lieutenant in the Army's 8th Armored Division.
Right. Fighting under General Patton in the European theater during World War II, our notes show he proved his mettle in actual combat, he sustained injuries, and then he finally joined Green Bay in 1946.
Right. So he finally gets to Green Bay. He establishes himself, he leads the team in interceptions, builds a reputation as this fierce heavy hitter. He is anchoring this defense. And then the calendar hits 1951. He's recalled to active duty for the Korean War. Wow. He becomes one of the rare few NFL players to serve in both conflicts.
Which is just a staggering level of commitment.
But wait, look at this from a purely human or even a business perspective. I have to push back a little on how smoothly the sources sometimes portray this.
What do you mean?
Well, you are in your physical prime. You are leaving your primary source of income on the table and risking career-ending injury, or worse, in literal combat. Surely the sources show some of these guys, or at least the Packers front office, being deeply frustrated by these draft interruptions. I mean, if I'm the GM in 1951, I'm calling a War Department.
Well, it's a fair question, but you really have to adjust your lens to the reality of the 1950s NFL.
Okay.
The league was not the multi-billion-dollar corporate monolith it is today. And culturally, these men were part of a serve first, play later generation. Duty wasn't viewed as this frustrating distraction from a career. It was just an undeniable structural fact of life.
So the GM couldn't really complain.
The front office couldn't fight it because society at large wouldn't accept them fighting it. They were soldiers first, athletes second.
Okay, so the psychological baseline was just completely different. You didn't view it as, like, missing out on your prime.
Precisely. And when you carry that perspective, the uncertainty of being recalled doesn't break your focus. It actually makes you value the finite time you do have on the field that much more. It breeds a specific type of mental resilience.
Which really speaks volumes about the generational resilience of Green Bay itself. I mean, the fans understood that sacrifice because the fans were living it too.
Oh, absolutely. They were right there with them.
And speaking of how deeply connected the community is to that history, that is exactly the heart of the Tales from the Frozen Tundra. Superfans of Titletown Kickstarter campaign we are supporting today. Have you looked through the fan stories they are compiling for this book?
I have, and it is remarkable. It explores how families literally pass down these traditions across generations.
Yeah.
We are talking about the tailgates in Lot 1, the handmade costumes, the season tickets that stay in a single family for decades.
It really emphasizes why preserving these fan stories matters so much. The players on the field change, but the fans are the ones who act as the custodians of this history.
Right.
If you love the history we are digging into today, you really need to go support their Kickstarter campaign. It is vital to preserve this superfan history before those stories are lost.
It really is a phenomenal project.
But we'll be right back after this short break.
So, taking that idea of a shared generational mindset, let's move from the grit of the Korean War into the late 1950s and 60s.
Okay.
You have this entire locker room of guys who just spent years being molded by strict military hierarchies.
Right.
When they finally take off the uniform and put on the pads, they need a coach who speaks that same language of absolute authority. Enter Vince Lombardi.
The timing couldn't have been more perfectly aligned, honestly.
It really couldn't.
To properly welcome Coach Lombardi to the conversation, our second featured drink is the Golden Era Draft.
Okay, what do we have here?
It is a traditional American blonde or golden ale. And there are zero gimmicks here.
Nice.
Just a clean malt profile, a slight hop bite, and a brilliant, clear gold color that perfectly matches the Packers' helmets.
The analogy to Lombardi's playbook is right there in the glass.
Exactly.
No gimmicks. This beer is all about execution. It relies entirely on perfection, repetition, and a no-nonsense approach. And that was Lombardi's fundamental philosophy. He didn't just want to win games. He demanded excellence as a baseline.
You know, there is an amazing quote from the Tales from the Frozen Tundra source material that illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, the one from the grandfather.
Yes. It's a memory from a fan whose grandfather was explaining why Lombardi was still screaming at his players on the sideline, even when the Packers already had a massive, insurmountable lead.
Right.
The grandfather says, because he wants them to do their best, not just enough to win.
Man. For Lombardi, winning wasn't just a goal you checked off a list. It was a responsibility you owed to the man next to you.
Yeah.
You do the job right, you give everything you have on every single down, and only then do you rest. And when you look at his roster during these Cold War years, you start to really understand why his methods work so well.
Because they were already trained that way.
Exactly. He was coaching men who had already had that exact philosophy drilled into them by the United States military.
Let's look at the mechanics of how that military training translated to the field, starting with Willie Davis.
Okay.
So he gets drafted by the Browns, serves 2 years in the Army, and is traded to Green Bay in 1960. He goes on to play 10 years for the Packers and never misses a single game.
An absolute Iron Man.
Contrast that with watching a game today, right? Where a player might naturally sit out a few weeks with a minor ankle sprain.
Yeah.
How much of Davis's Iron Man streak was a direct result of his military background?
Honestly, a significant amount. I mean, the military establishes a physical and mental endurance baseline that alters your entire perception of pain and fatigue.
Right.
When Willie Davis was in the Army, you didn't get to call in sick for a training exercise or a deployment. You pushed through. So when he got to Green Bay, that durability translated into him becoming a team captain and an immovable leader on the defense.
That makes total sense.
He knew his body could handle far more than a standard athlete might think possible.
And then you have Paul Hornung, right? Lombardi's golden boy. He serves in the Army during the 1961 Berlin crisis.
Yep.
The sources show Lombardi famously using his massive political connections, like literally reaching out to President John F. Kennedy just to secure weekend passes so Hornung could fly in and play on Sundays.
Which really shows how highly Lombardi valued that specific type of player. And it wasn't just Hornung.
No.
You had Ray, Nitschke, and Boyd Dowler, who both also served in the Army during the Berlin crisis call-up.
Nitschke is the poster child for toughness. And Dowler, I mean, you look at how he played. He balanced active duty with being Bart Starr's absolute most reliable receiver.
The very definition of dependable.
Exactly. And then consider Max McGee. People remember him for catching the first touchdown in Super Bowl I, and maybe for his reputation of staying out a little late the night before the game.
Oh, yeah, the famous hangover game.
Right. But what often gets overlooked in the narrative is that he voluntarily left the NFL in 1955 to serve 2 years as an Air Force pilot. He didn't return until 1957.
Which is fascinating when you think about the physical requirements of flying a military aircraft.
How so?
Well, as a pilot, you need incredible spatial awareness. You have to manage a chaotic cockpit, monitor a dozen instruments, and maintain peripheral vision for formation flying, all while moving at high speeds.
Right.
When McGee comes back to the NFL, how does that spatial awareness translate to running routes? It translates directly to finding the soft spots in his own defense.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
A pilot is trained to process multiple streams of visual information and make split-second decisions. On the field, McGee wasn't just running a drawn line on a playbook. He was reading the shifting secondary, anticipating where the safety was rotating, and adjusting his route in real time.
That level of situational awareness is literally honed in a cockpit.
Exactly. Add in guys like Tom Bettis in the Army Reserve and Gary Knafelc in the Army, and you realize Lombardi was essentially running a military unit on the field.
He really was.
In the military, if one guy misses his assignment on a patrol, the whole unit is compromised. Lombardi instituted that exact weakest link accountability.
All right, he wasn't just teaching them blocking assignments. He was leveraging their existing understanding of mutual survival.
He weaponized their military discipline to conquer the NFL. It was the absolute perfect synthesis of a coach's demanding philosophy meeting a roster uniquely conditioned to execute it under extreme pressure.
Unstoppable. And, maintaining that kind of historical understanding requires active preservation, which brings me back to the Tales from the Frozen Tundra Kickstarter campaign we mentioned.
Right.
I want to give you a quick update on their progress.
Oh, where are they at? The campaign is currently sitting at 21% funded.
Yes, 21%. And here's the crucial thing about Kickstarter for those listening. It utilizes an all-or-nothing funding model. If they do not hit their $3,000 goal, the project does not get funded at all.
None of these stories get published.
Exactly.
Which is why sharing the campaign with your network right now is so incredibly important.
And there are some fantastic rewards available if you back it. They have digital editions, signed paperbacks, signed hardcovers, and various supporter tiers. If you care about Green Bay history, head over to their page, back the project, and encourage other listeners to help preserve this legacy.
It's a great way to ensure the history we're talking about today isn't forgotten by the next generation of fans.
We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, let's look at the generation that followed these men. We established how military service built the foundation of the Lombardi dynasty, but how did that culture echo forward into the decades that followed?
Right, like how did the Korean War and Cold War veterans bridge the gap between the mass mobilization of the World War II era and the modern era of the NFL?
Exactly.
To explore that bridge, I am pouring our final drink of the day, the Classified Aviators Americano.
Okay, visually it just looks like a standard black cup of coffee.
But that's the trick. It's 2 shots of dark espresso, hot water, an orange peel, and a hidden dash of Angostura bitters.
Wow.
To the naked eye, it's simple. But underneath, It hides this deeply complex, spiced botanical layer that you only notice once you actually engage with it.
That is a brilliant tactile representation of the Cold War era. It really leans into the espionage, the hidden depths, and the massive stakes operating just below the surface. Specifically, our sources tie this to Packers quarterback Zeke Bratkowski, who spent his time as an Air Force pilot flying the Berlin airlift.
Which is just an incredible piece of history.
Right.
The Berlin airlift required pilots to fly massive transport planes through hostile contested airspace, dropping supplies into a blockaded city.
Yeah.
You're navigating chaos, trusting your instruments, and making life-or-death decisions under immense geopolitical pressure. Think about how that translates to the pocket presence of an NFL quarterback.
Well, yeah. When you have stared down anti-aircraft searchlights over Berlin, a blitzing linebacker probably doesn't induce the same level of panic.
Not at all.
Bratkowski learned how to maintain absolute calm and execute a mission while chaos literally swirled around him. That is the definition of pocket presence.
So how did this specific generation, Bratkowski, Davis, McGee, bridge that cultural gap? Because obviously the military draft eventually ended.
Right.
The world changed. The NFL became a massive corporate entity. But the culture in Green Bay somehow remained uniquely tied to this service-oriented mindset.
They bridged it by proving unequivocally that you could be a star athlete, a champion, and still answer the call of duty without resentment. The Korean War and Cold War veterans maintained that military football connection so tightly that they ensured service remained an integral, deeply respected pillar of the Packers' identity.
Yeah.
Men like Willie Davis and Paul Hornung showed the rookies coming in what it looked like to balance duty to your country with duty to your team.
They set the cultural baseline. They made it clear that being a Packer meant understanding that you were part of something larger than yourself. And sometimes that requires stepping away from the game you love.
It is a code of honor in many ways.
A code of honor. You know, that actually perfectly transitions to something else I wanted to share with you today. If you need a break from sports history and want to dive into a different kind of code of honor, you have to check out the Once and Future series from Drecky-Yord Publishing.
Ah, yes. Pendragon.
Exactly. It is this incredibly fresh, unique take on the Arthurian legend. It deals with knights, duty, and carrying the weight of a kingdom.
Which actually parallels a lot of the themes of responsibility we are discussing today.
It really does, just in a fantastic fictional setting.
And book 2 of the series is already planned for 2027, so it's the perfect time to jump into the first book.
Highly recommend it. Follow Drecky-Yord Publishing for all their future releases. We'll be right back after this short break. Now, as we wrap up today's deep dive into these sources, I want to quickly preview where we're heading next time. Because that cultural baseline set by the Lombardi-era veterans directly influenced the players of the 21st century.
Yes, we will be moving into the era of modern service. Right. We will be looking at guys like Chris Gitzy, Phil McConkey, Mike Wall, Bob Kuberski, and Darren College.
I know we'll be teasing Chris Gitzy's absolutely iconic run onto Lambeau Field, carrying the American flag in the very first game after September 11.
A moment that still gives you chills just thinking about the raw emotion in that stadium.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll look at the unique path of Darren College, whose military service actually began after his professional football career ended. It's going to be a really powerful discussion.
Definitely.
Just a reminder to you listening, this America 250 mini-series is all about celebrating America's 250th birthday through the powerful, often overlooked stories of these Packers veterans.
And before we close out today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time today talking about Lombardi's rigorous demands, the tactical advantages of military discipline, and the pressure these guys faced. But I want you to think about the sheer weight of responsibility these men carried on a human level. When they were in the service, they weren't just learning how to block a defensive end or tackle a halfback. They had been meticulously trained on how to protect the man next to them with their actual lives.
Wow.
When you take men who have experienced that profound level of devotion and you bring them back to a tight-knit community like Green Bay, it doesn't just win football games.
Right.
It fundamentally changes the fabric of the city. It builds a culture of mutual reliance that survives for generations.
That is so well said. When you sit in the stands today, or you are watching from your living room, and you see those pre-game military flyovers roaring over Lambeau Field, it isn't just pageantry.
No, it's not.
You are participating in a braided timeline, a tradition that stretches unbroken all the way back to the doughboys in the trenches, through the frozen reservoirs of Korea and the tense skies of the Cold War. It makes hitting that pause button on a sports career mean something so much bigger.
It really does.
Thank you for joining us at the table today. Please go encourage your friends to support the Tales from the Frozen Tundra Kickstarter and share this series with your fellow Packers fans. Happy birthday, America.
Go Pack, go!